This is a living history bonus video for the Sudbury astronaut training story. If you haven't seen the main episode yet, please check it out now. I will link it in the description. In today's episode, we're going to meet up once again with David Pearson. He's the geologist we met in the main video who's from Sudbury, who was part of the team that helped the Apollo 17 crew when they trained in this city. David is going to take us back to one of the astronaut training sites that we briefly visited in the main episode, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about why that site is significant. Then we're going to go a little bit farther, and he's going to teach us about the geology that makes Sudbury such an incredible place to learn about the moon. David, take it away.
Two boulders very distinctly at 90 degrees to one another, and there are the same boulders with John Young and Charlie Duke on either side, just over here. We brought the Minister of the Environment here earlier this summer, and he stood here and bent over just like John Young was, and we took a photograph of him in John Young's pose. Part of what you see in the photograph is that nothing was growing. There were dead remnants of trees that had fallen because of the acid rain, which had killed them. Nothing was growing. Today, it's so different, so different. So what we'll do now is we'll walk up to the ridge where the astronauts went, and we'll see the geology, the geological feature that they came here to study, and which in fact John Young mentioned on the moon. So let's go and have a look at that. Vaguely you'll see a rock ridge, that's where we're heading to. And it was up there that the astronauts, John Young, Charlie Duke, with John Guy Bray from 𝗪𝗪𝗆, and I think that's probably Don Phipps, and I think that's probably Mike Dunce, the crew that were with them. They went up to the ridge and they're looking down at the rock, and they're looking at what we call Sudbury breccia, which is part of the evidence, part of the geological history of the impact here nearly 2 billion years ago. And that's what they came to look at, because they were going to the moon, where are there craters and impacts that they would walk over, and the idea was that if they train here in Sudbury, they'll recognize the breccia, the broken rock, that is such a landmark of meteorite impact craters. If you come down here and we look back at what the rock we've just walked over, it's possible to see there are fragments. There's a piece here and a piece there, but over there it looks like a smashed up rock, and it was smashed up. And the way that it was smashed up is that at the time of the impact, shock waves not only spread out and caused shatter cones, but they broke the rock, as you can imagine. And in fact, if you look at any outcrop in the Sudbury area, you'll see that it's very broken up. And one of the features was that sides of those cracks, think of them as major cracks, you're talking about 10 and 20 kilometers down, they slipped, and rock fragments broke from either side because of that slipping and crushing, just in a few seconds, maybe a minute or two. And they were ground against one another, so that this rock and this rock and this, they rubbed against one another. And the powdery result of that rubbing is now around those fragments and sort of solidified again. It was an instantaneous process. It was a shock process. And this is what the astronauts came to look at. And we're going to look at some more outcrops, which are ones that they looked at. This is what they were here for. This is what they were looking at when they were up on the top of the ridge that we're on. And especially actually here. John Young, Charlie Duke, looking at Sudbury breccia, that's what we call it, breccia. Think of it as broken rock, breccia. And John Young up on the moon, and I think that Sudbury is the only community that's been mentioned by name on the moon by one of the astronauts. So we have a little spot in astronaut history, not just because of what they saw when they were here, but because they remembered it. It was a good learning experience for them. If they hadn't been here, they wouldn't have known as much about what they were looking at. They would have said it looks all broken up, but they knew much more about it because of having been here.
Thanks very much for that, David. And there's one last thing that he told me that I'd like to share before we part. David tells me that the moon actually helped our understanding of Sudbury's geology. He says that geologists tend to be quite conservative. They don't really like to say definitively that this structure was caused by this exact thing, just because it's so hard to track down what happened billions of years ago. However, when they went to the moon and they saw such similar formations along those very clear impact craters as we see in Sudbury, it really put a lot more evidence in the fact that Sudbury was caused by a meteorite impact crater. However, there are still some people that don't think that that was the case. But anyways, that's another story for another time. That is it for this bonus video. I'll be back next week with a footnotes video for the Sudbury astronaut training story. And until then, be well.